first and your last name, and how do you spell it?
Tammy Carter, Tammycarter.
Awesome. So Tammy, what's the craziest thing you've heard about the town of Oskaloosa, and who did you hear it from?
I really don't know. I'm not from Oskaloosa. Just the different things that they put on here at the mall. I mean, they do have a lot of activities.
Okay, so what's the craziest customer story?
Oh, God. People getting mad because they get ID'd for everything.
Anything specific?
Anytime somebody wants a pipe or papers or anything, everybody is ID'd in the sale, and it makes a lot of people mad.
Gotcha.
Because if there's 5 people, all 5 need to show their ID.
Gotcha. Tammy, what's the most random thing that's happened to you in Oskaloosa?
I moved here. I should say I moved back here.
Okay. What's the scariest Oskaloosa story that you have?
Someone trying to get in our back door when we were getting ready to close.
Tell me more about that.
It's just somebody, I think they were looking through the trash and they decided they wanted to see what was in our store, and they were trying to open the door as I was trying to go out, and it scared the crap out of me.
Okay. Who's the greatest Oskaloosa legend, as far as you know?
I don't know any Oskaloosa legends.
No one famous ever comes by here?
No.
Okay, fair enough. So, if there's anything else that you haven't told me about the backdoor story or anything else, what's the craziest customer interaction that you had?
We really don't have a lot of crazy customers. I mean, just people looking for things that we should sell, but we don't. I mean, people get mad at us, upset with us. So,
what's the coolest item you sold since you've been here at the store?
a 6-foot hookah, and I've sold 2.
6-foot hookah. Anything else crazy?
No.
Okay. Well, Tammy, thank you for your time. I appreciate
All right, not a problem. Thank you.
You want to say hi, Mom?
So you're from Oski, so are there any like cool like stories you've heard since you've been in Oski, or like stories about legends or anything?
Oskaloosa has a lot of really great history, and I love the history of this town. So, here recently, more people have talked about this alley that is just to the east of me, and they call it Trolley Place Alley. There used to be a trolley car that ran right in front of my store here, High Avenue, and it went down to Beacon, and that was where the main depot for a long time. And so one of our presidents actually came in to Beacon and then came up here and was interviewed or did like a whole speech up on the square, like right outside of the courthouse. And the amount of people that turned out for that was amazing.
That's cool.
Like the entire square was just full of people. So, I mean, people don't get together for gatherings like that anymore. It's just pretty neat.
No, that is neat. So like, along with the legends, like, have you like ever been like in a position like you've been seen anything like paranormal or something like that?
I have all sorts of weird things that happen to me on a pretty regular basis. I've never really had anything like that in this building. There was, when we were doing the construction or rebuild of this building, I took some photographs upstairs in my office, and there was definitely some strange colored orbs in there that was not there like when I was looking at it. But when I went back and looked at the pictures, there was definitely, I don't know, 5 or 6 orbs that was a bright color that wouldn't have been a reflection off of anything.
Yeah,
so that's kind of neat.
That's crazy. I'd be a little freaked out, but I'd be kind of like, okay, that's kind of cool, but
I think that if it was bad, I think you would have had a really strong negative feeling.
Right.
You know, or felt nauseous or something like that. I didn't have anything like that.
So this is a really beautiful store. Like, do you have like any like old items or items that you've like sold that you would like that are kind of cool?
This whole store is mostly made of old things.
Right.
So my family owned a garbage business here in this area for more than 60 years. I grew up having to help on the back of a garbage truck. Went to school for graphic design, so I would see perfectly good things get thrown away, and I would see how full the landfill would get. And so I repurpose things all the time. This bedroom set is a perfect example. It's beautiful, but this is an antique set, but you know, it didn't look like anything fancy. I'd always envisioned doing it black on black, not something I'd ever do at home. Last year, my grandmother passed away on my birthday. This was actually her wedding dress.
Oh.
You know, like that doesn't happen very often that you
Yeah.
have a grandmother that had a red and black wedding dress. But that was kind of my inspiration behind this whole bedroom set.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a tribute to my grandparents because my grandpa had a lot of black trucks. That was his favorite color. So like, why not?
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, and this is a very cool and neat store. Love it, actually.
Thank you.
Hello, what's up? I'm here at McDonald's. This is my guest today. Can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Jeremiah. I'm from Hawaii.
All right. How long have you been living in Oskaloosa?
I've been living here for like 3 years now.
All right. Can you please tell me like a real crazy story? Like, what's the local like scary legends around here?
I don't know about legend, but I heard there was a stabbing at William Penn. I think it was like last year or something.
Yeah. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So apparently, I guess it was like about these two roommates. They had like problems with each other, and I guess one of them ended up slashing the other roommate's neck over there at I think it was Elks.
Is that else? Wait, why? So why did he slice his neck?
From all I heard, he didn't turn down his music, so I guess he got mad that the music didn't got turned down, so he slashed his neck.
On some serial killer stuff, huh?
Serial killer shit.
Yeah. Well, hey man.
But I heard he's alive though.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
that's a good part.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, I appreciate you. Thank you. You have a great day, man.
You too.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, what is your name?
Amelia Hinch.
And what grade are you in?
4.
And what's your favorite thing to do outside of school?
It's usually to go home and read. Yeah.
What's your favorite book to read? Or your favorite genre?
Graphic novels.
Graphic novels. Do you have a favorite story you love to tell people?
No, I don't. I don't think so. Yeah, I know.
What's your favorite thing to do as a family in Oskaloosa?
I like to go out and eat dinner.
What's your favorite place to eat?
Pizza Hut.
Pizza Hut? That's a good place. All right. Thank you. You are all done.
One of the things about Oskaloosa is this has to do with this man George Daly, who the George Daly Auditorium's named after, who was this, he had mental health issues, lived by himself, was a recluse, a hermit, was a hoarder, and yet people didn't know that he had several $1 million because his dad had bought some land in Louisiana during the Depression that had oil under it. And so he ended up, after his death, it was set up so that that money could do a lot of things for Oskaloosa. Okay, I'm going to go with someone who's alive right now, and it's an odd selection, but he was just named Mr. Oskaloosa by the Chamber of Commerce back in the spring. His name is Vinnie Provenzano, or Vincent, Vinnie Provenzano. His career was largely as a custodian at the middle school, but he got to know generations and generations of people. He has all sorts of personality, and he just knows everybody, and he's everywhere. That's where I'd have to go two different directions in a way. Over the last century, we've been a big football town, and so football's been very, very good, including a state championship. Over the last 25 years, we have a big tradition of excellence in volleyball. One coach especially took team after team after team to the state tournament. and they had a lot of success. She had a lot of all-staters. A number of records at William Penn for volleyball are held by her old players. So, volleyball over the last 25 years. It's named after an Indian princess, Oskaloosa, or Uskaloosa, I don't know how you pronounce it. But what it meant, she was the daughter of a chief, of a big chief, and she, the name means last of the beautiful.
I'm here with
Aiden North.
Aiden North. Aiden, where'd you grow up at?
I grew up in Oskaloosa, Iowa.
All right. Thank you for giving me some of your time tonight to ask you some questions. What's the craziest thing you've heard about in the town of Oskaloosa?
Craziest thing I've heard about was probably 2 years ago. There was a girl, probably in her mid-20s, that was in the square, obviously on some kind of drugs.
Yeah.
And there's the Chief Mahaska statue in the middle of the square that is Chief Mahaska, an Indian. And she was climbing on the statue, trying to get intimate with the statue. And the police had to come and drag her off and take her to the clink.
Oh, nice. Well, that's pretty crazy, I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
what's the most random thing that's happened in Oski?
the most random thing?
Random thing.
Man,
Just out of nowhere just happened, you know?
most random thing. I'd probably say that.
Yeah.
The girl trying to get with the Chief Mahaska statue.
That's a pretty crazy story. What's the biggest legend?
The biggest legend?
In
It's got to
Oskaloosa.
be Charlie.
Charlie?
The man that got lost in Walmart. You'll see him around. He's always riding his three-wheeled bike around, and if he sees you, he'll ask
Oh, all right.
you going to Walmart.
North, I appreciate your time today to read this question, and that's all.
My name's Penny Adams, and Penny, Adams, Adams. And I guess I'll let you ask the questions here before I get any farther.
So, how long have you been in Oskaloosa?
Oh, I was born and raised here.
So,
I went to school here. I've been here all my life.
So through that time and you being here for so long, like, what are some of the craziest stories you've heard about the town or like things you've seen?
Probably the neatest story, I wouldn't call it crazy, is the George Daly and the ability of those funds being able to support the community, being in a trust. So.
Can you kind of go more deep into that?
George Daly was kind of a recluse in the community, and he ended up being taken under the wing with Nick Williams, who was also friends with Joe Crookham, who was the lawyer at the time. And so with all those friendships and those relationships, they found out that he was actually an heir to an oil fields out of Oklahoma. And when that was found out and the recluse didn't really want to have access to the money, they ended up putting it in a trust for the community, which is where a lot of the things we've benefited from in the community are coming from the Daily Trust Fund.
Yeah, because one of the first things when I came to Oskaloosa, there's the George Daly, auditorium and all this stuff, and I kind of didn't know much about him. So
yep,
that's definitely cool.
There is Iola Cadwalder wrote a musical in regards to George Daly. I didn't either. Growing up and been around him, his house was right across where I went to junior high.
Yeah.
I didn't know as much about him either until Iola Cadwalder wrote the musical. It'd be a really good thing for you to kind of look up on and see more aspects of George Daly's life and why it became the funds got put in the George Daly Trust Fund.
What is Love Inc.?
Love Inc. Is a partnership of churches working together to help neighbors in our community.
And talk about the wagon wheels.
The wagon wheels, so if you think about your life as a wagon train moving west, and you have four wheels: physical, emotional, relational, and spiritual. And if any of those wheels are damaged or broken, your wagon can't really move. And so, and then we have the prayer covering with the covered wagon. And so in our classes, we focus on each of those areas. It's a holistic approach to give someone a hand up and to live into the fullness of life that God intended for them.
Why do you think it's so important to give people hands up as opposed to hand out?
A handout, but a continual handout. There is a time and place for handouts. Don't misunderstand. But a continual handout without that hand up just continues to bring on that version of, like, I'm not good enough. I can't do it. Like, this is what I have to do. This is how I survive. And it doesn't allow that individual to grow and discover and develop their gifts and abilities, and that they have value. So our new slogan, you have value. Each one has value. They're created in God's image, and so we want them to live into the fullness of that.
Could you talk about that aha moment, that click moment that you say people have?
Yeah, it's wonderful when someone who has just been surviving, from going from just one thing to the next and not really discovering that, and then when they realize how empowered they are, that they have that, their eyes just light up, and it's like a whole new life. Someone comes in and we start talking about what they're good at and what they enjoy, and they're not focusing on their need anymore, and they're like, yeah, and it's just a whole different outlook at that point. Like,
what does that do for you?
Oh, it feels good for all of us. It's hope, but more so for them,
Yeah, for sure. Okay, that's it. We're good right now.
Okay.
Okay. Now that we're back, okay. One thing. What is your major? When you coming out of college?
So I have a Master's of Arts in Journalism, but that also, my specialty was in public affairs and advocacy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how do you get into mythology?
Mythology?
Yeah.
So if you think about what mythology is, what it means, mythology comes from the Greek word mythos, which means a narrative, so a story. And then logos, which is an argument or just a way to tell a story, right? So mythology is just our way of telling stories. In a community, the way we connect, the way we experience our culture is by telling stories. We have a shared language, we have shared experiences, and we make stories to either talk about or experience or deal with those experiences. And that can be something like a happy experience, a joyful experience, or it can be grief, it can be fear. One of the reasons like horror is such a huge genre is because we use these ideas, these concepts, these scary, spooky, like supernatural beings to deal with our fears, to deal with grief and loss, which is a huge kind of trend in horror right now, is using the idea of possession or a monster or something to deal with grief and loss, like the Babadook. If you've seen the Babadook, it's about a mother dealing with an autistic child, I believe it was, or a child who has behavioral problems, and this crazy evil monster spirit thing is kind of stalking them and causing chaos in the home. And that, I think, is symbolizing her inability or frustration with the situation, and how like maybe she is fighting that monster of what motherhood looks like and what she felt like it would look like, and maybe her guilt at not loving that role. So we just use stories all the time throughout our lives. They connect us.
So how do you think, staying on top of the stories, how do you think stories could bring a community together?
So if we think back to like the idea of culture, before we had a written language, we told stories. And again, those stories were how we kind of knit our societies together. So when we share a culture with someone, that is connecting all of us. When we sit down around the campfire and we tell a scary story, we do that because we're building community. So communities definitely have all of these shared ideas and stories that they share and create a community out of. I think I just was very cyclical with that idea. I'm not sure if I answered your question. I think I did.
No, that's perfect. Another question I had was, do you think stories affect people's opinions on others?
Absolutely. I think we might be traveling a little bit or like blurring the line between story and rumor. But we probably all have experienced that like one grumpy old person in our like community where our parents were like, don't go on his lawn, right? The old classic old man trope. And we know that because as children we're told this, and we're told this story, like you stay away from this house, or this house is haunted, or this house is the house you don't go by, right?
Or don't play with strangers.
Don't play with strangers. Again, yeah. And we can even like bring that back to like the mythos of like Little Red Riding Hood. These are stories that we still tell, that are old stories, that we still tell children to teach them a lesson, which is another of the really important functions that stories have. We use them as allegory to teach and to kind of highlight the ideas and the concepts and the norms that we want like baked into our society. We grow up hearing these things, we normalize them, and then we adhere to them.
Do you think the youth is invested in stories?
Absolutely. I think you guys are telling stories all the time. I mean, social media is a story. It's a story about you. TikTok, you're telling 30-second stories. The mode of transmission of stories change throughout time, and as technology evolves. We didn't have written language, so we had a verbal way of telling and recording our stories and our histories. It evolved into writing, and then into the printing press, and then into distribution of books, of novels, of these ideas that were important to us. And then we get into like a visual era where we talk about film and photography and how we're telling a story there. A story doesn't have to be, I'm telling you something. A story can be a painting, a story can be a picture, a story can be anything that there's a message at its core, and it doesn't really matter how we distribute it. We are designed as human beings to tell stories. And that's how we teach, that's how we learn, that's how we experience our lives.
Do you have a favorite story that that you like to talk about, or like you like to like to discuss like with some people?
I was really interested in Native American folklore when I was like younger, into my teenage years. So a lot of those stories really resonated with me. I don't know if I can think of a specific one at the moment, but every culture has like different types of stories. If you have ever heard of the African folk tales about the spider, about Anansi, I believe is the name of the spider. Those stories, like I would sit and listen to with my children about Anansi, that's what it was. Anansi the spider, and how Anansi, a lot of the Anansi stories were about food. So we can obviously kind of interpret that maybe food security in these cultures at that time was a really high concern. So Anansi the spider is typically looking for a meal, right? And there is a story where Anansi is traveling from village to village looking for food. And he comes to one village, and there is like rice. There's like a ton of rice, and the rice is like talking to the spider, right? The rice says, "Eat me! I'm right here. Like, here you go. You're starving." And Anansi is like, "Okay, I'm going to eat all of this rice, and then I'm going to bring it back to the village, and everything's going to be great." But then he like smells something in the distance, and he decides that he's going to go search out that smell. So he goes from the rice village into like the sweet potato village. And now he's got all of these beautiful sweet potatoes in front of him, and they're all cooked and steaming, and they're like, "Okay, eat me, like, here you go, and then take us back to the village and you can feed your village." And he goes through a couple more iterations of different villages with different delicious foods, until he's like, okay, if everything is like, if it's getting better, if there's like more delicious food in the next village, I'm going to see what's in the next village. Until finally he's like almost fainting from exhaustion and hunger. He gets to that last village, and he's back at his own village, and so he has nothing to show for it.
That's good. That's just such a interesting story. I ain't never heard a story like that. Do you think stories can impact people?
Yeah. I'm sure we've all heard of a story that has been particularly meaningful in our lives. In fact, we make movies about these true stories that are impactful. Something like, is it Sully, where Tom Hanks is the airplane pilot. I actually haven't seen this movie. I was going to bring up The Blind Side, but now there's a bunch of controversy about The Blind Side.
Oh yeah, you talking about with Michael O'Hare, where they say he really wasn't adopted.
Oh, I haven't even looked into the controversy. I just know that it's been like in the news.
Yeah.
So they didn't adopt him, and they were just kind of claiming him.
Yeah. It kind of ruins the whole story.
It does.
And I really like that movie too.
I know. Yeah. I mean, it's a good story, right? But whether or not, and it doesn't have to be true to be inspiring, but yeah, it is messed up.
Well, thank you for all the time. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. We all do. And WPU, we out. MJ Money Show.